Well, good morning, Lizzy. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. How are you today, Joe?
Actually, I'm pretty pumped up. The topic today is let me do the commercial break here, folks. For those who sign in for the first time, if you come in early, welcome. We do start a little bit before our actual time to do some background stuff, and part of it is to remind you that we really want your opinion. You can look at us through Facebook, Zoom, or LinkedIn. If you looked at us through YouTube, you have to be signed into your Google account to leave comment. Also, understand there's maybe a 15-second delay between the time you make your comment and come back. If you see us on the replay, we will still audit. We will come back and respond after the fact. And remember to share us not only with yourselves, but also with your friends. Because the more you help us out, help me out on this, somehow I'm going to be a better person. I've been told on this. And for those who are new, Lizzy is a holistic consultant slash coach. And her philosophy, her style is, I say, most of the right brain stuff, but I'm a left brain kind of guy, so I'm just not getting it. And she is convinced she's going to indoctrinate me, so we'll see how far that goes. So this comes back to, she's asking, how am I doing? And I'm saying today I am pumped up because, and by the way, she provides the quotes for me. We don't rehearse this because we really want to keep it real, spontaneous, interactive, certainly. And the concept is that she will give me the quote, I'll post it, and somehow she's going to explain it to me in a manner that makes sense. And so
I'll do
today,
my best.
very nice. Well, actually, she's good. She gives a good effort. She is tenacious. She's persistent. So she's dangerous. So for those who like that style of danger and progression, she's the one you want to come in contact with. But today's theme, I'm going to share it now, is look for growth and learning in every experience, especially the losses and difficult ones, because then there is no loss, there is only growth. Now, who's that quote from,
Yes,
Lizzy?
I want to give one of my coaches, Mr. Jake Ballantyne, credit for this one because he said that he's repeated that a few times in different ways, and it really resonated with me. And so I've been using it a lot with regards to trying to help people realize that whenever they're going through something, looking for the learning and looking for what where you could have learned from that experience, you end up really with a gain because you gain resilience,
Right.
um,
Well,
gain.
now the one thing we happen to agree on this one, and she says it resonates with her, this statement, well, it resonates with me also. And I've got an example for you, and I'll leave it up while I'm reading it. Now, basically, we just had the big game. I can't say Super Bowl because that's a trademark name, but I watched the big game. I had my team in mind who I wanted to win. I even put money on it. Well, it turns out it didn't work my way. So that was so my wallet is still empty. I still feel a loss, and the growth is only the pain's getting worse and worse. So I really want to know how Lizzie's going to help me out on this
Mhm.
philosophically.
Your pain, you're choosing to stay with the pain rather than
My
letting
wallet's
it
still
go.
my wallet's still empty. How can I change that?
So maybe next time you'll choose to watch the game without taking out your wallet. Maybe that could be the learning. That maybe you can have fun with the game without actually gambling on it. And if you choose to gamble on it, you choose knowing that really you can either win or you can lose. That's a 50-50 chance.
Well,
So,
I hear the issue of gambling, and I don't know enough to admit to the stats 50-50 and what the point spread is.
mhm.
I don't get that, but isn't any learning experience a gamble and a risk of loss behind that?
Yes, but if you look at it just clearly that way, but if you go a tiny bit deeper to see, where is the learning in there? Where is the growth? Is there somewhere can I find something in this experience that can lend itself to learning? And I think that if you look into it, there always is, and if you can really try to look at things in that way, you're there again. There's only a gain. There's only a gain. And
Yeah, but I hear that. But I think of times in my life where I hear people talk about who rephrase that. I I had a problem with getting people's names correctly stated, and I was in a service center where there's a lot of ethnic patients,
Mhm.
and I've always seen the name wrong. I give you one example that the name I would come out and ask for Jesus Rodriguez, say for the next person coming out, and nobody would respond. So I'd raise my voice, Jesus Rodriguez, like I'm saying to myself, aren't you listening to the call, your name? Well, somebody told me, kept saying, Joe, the name is not Jesus, it's Jesus.
Mhm.
I am still so traumatized. That happened like 8 centuries ago. I'm so traumatized that when I listen to a name, now I have to ask like 4 or 5 times to write it down, to spell it correctly. Geez, it's learning experience, I guess. Am I growing with it? I don't know, but
Well, first of all, I think that you've become much more tenacious about learning people's names and saying them properly, which really is, I think, a courtesy to people if you remember their names and you actually ask them how to say them properly.
yeah, I've kind of figured that out.
The part of holding on to the guilt about saying it wrong, that's the part that you can let go of. That's a choice. You don't need that to keep at, digging at you and digging at you. That's only, there's no reason for that. It's an honest mistake. And again, you maybe learn to be a little more conscious of names. I think that's not a bad, that's a growth. In my opinion, that's a growth.
Well, wouldn't some people argue that guilt is a motivating factor? That if you let
No,
it,
I,
no,
I, I don't agree with that. I think that guilt is just self-inflicted suffering that we don't need to hold on to. I think that, and believe me, I was raised with a lot of people who like to use that guilt
mm-hmm,
to get, and I decided at one point I'm not gonna feel guilty if I say no to something. That's a complete sentence,
mm-hmm,
and I'm a recovering people pleaser, so I understand the whole factor, but
mm.
I think that it doesn't serve us. It does not serve us, and it's not even so easy to let it go. But again, it's a choice, to just choose to release that guilt, because it's only going to be, again, it's only going to be not healthy for a person who's feeling guilty. Probably the other person. I'm sure that Jesus has moved on.
Well, it's still a part of where I am, and sometimes I even find myself stuttering. I'm intrigued. I'm going to come back to what I said at the very open that
Mhm.
one talks about. Let me bring it up again because it's
Mhm.
it's so strange to me. If I can figure out my finger here and what's what, and it says again, look for the growth, and I'm saying this deliberately because I'm trying to get it better in my head. Look for the
Mhm.
growth and learning in every experience, especially the losses and difficult ones, because then there is no loss, there's only growth. So I'm going to ask you maybe to explain it as it's stated. Maybe that makes more sense to me then.
Um,
So,
okay.
and I
Yeah.
guess what I'm asking is, so how does the more difficult the loss, the greater the growth? Is that kind of what it's saying?
The more difficult, not necessarily, but on the other hand, the greater the loss, and when you're able to see the growth and where your resilience, that maybe there is that it is kind of equal to how great the loss is. I mean, I'll give you two examples. So one is greater than when my father was sick, and I think you've heard this before, but for the audience, I chose to release the control because I didn't have any over his illness. But what I could control is how I responded and how I went every week when I visited him. And I chose to not be affected by his condition, but to really just be a source of just bringing love and light and that kind of energy into the room. And what I know was that I developed this peace as a result, which is the growth. The growth was that I could get through this with peace and just a trust that that there's nothing I can do about the illness, but what I can control is how I responded. And I know that it brought him peace, and I know that it brought me peace. And I know that after he passed, and just the amount of suffering that I had as a result was much less than some of my other family members who really were just reactive to how he was on each particular day. And that's kind of a greater example, but just a smaller example. Recently I was going to host an event, and I had a lot of other things going on, and I did not put the time into promoting it and talking about it. I like promoted it once and I was like, okay, sign up, and then just kind of let it be. And, the result was it didn't happen. It's people, and that was okay, because what I learned, I really did learn. I was like, it's okay, because I realized I knew that I did not put the work in that was necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And next time I certainly will, if I'm going to put something out there. So I don't see it as a loss. I see it as like, okay, next time I'm going to need to, do what I've done for other events when they were successful. And this one I didn't, for whatever reason. And so do you hear what I'm saying with just both of those being very different examples, but focusing on what I learned, focusing on the good part, focusing on the part that I can control, leads to a gain, in my opinion.
Well, it sounds like, and I'm working hard at this. If I'm stabbing out too much, let me know. But it sounds like what I'm hearing is that rather than being, if you're going to move ahead in life and be a part of it to some of your own style, you have to be interactive with it in part. Even if you don't do it that way, if you have an experience that doesn't go well, you should not take it as a being discouraged, but a matter of being encouraged for how at least not to do it that way again. If you have some control, maybe not, or how to respond to it perhaps in a manner. So I guess you're trying to say it makes you a stronger person. Is that?
Yeah, it makes you a stronger person, and it makes you not the victim. The being stuck in victimhood is just again, it's like a vicious cycle of just of staying stuck. But when you can just see yourself as, oh, I'm the happy learner, and and I think that really we're here to grow and develop. We're here to get to grow into a better version of ourselves all the time, and so that's why we get these challenges. We don't grow when when everything is like rosy. We grow, and we are able to see what we're made of, and become more of what we're made of through the difficult things.
Okay, I hear that, and you talk about to grow and to see the light. Now, what comes to my mind when I'm hearing it, it's like it's described like turning a light switch on. If you want to go from dark to light, you turn the switch on. I don't know if is that intuitive for people. Is there little micro steps or baby steps one can take to shift from perhaps a zone of darkness and perpetual lost sense to there's something that can come out of this, that little glitter of light that can make it happen. So if something is not a switch, what does one do as a first step, perhaps?
Yeah, I think it's like putting one foot, taking little steps, baby steps, in addition to having gratitude again for what you already have.
But what's my first baby step in a general sense? What do I do differently that I'm not already doing?
First is to look at the situation and to really examine like how are you being reactive to it, or are you being responsive, and pause, take a moment and stop and think and think about what is my next right action, what is going to take me into the next the next best step, rather than doing the same thing over and over again, just making a different choice, choosing a higher vibing thought. I have a whole list of high vibing thoughts in my closet. And so like if it's on a sheet, and it's like, if I'm feeling it's somewhat whatever, I just go and I read, and I'm like, okay, just do it, little reminders to keep your vibration higher.
I hear that conceptually. I even get that intellectually, but I'm thinking of a person that maybe in an environment they've been continually told that you have no worth, you have no value. I don't even know why you keep trying to make the effort, because it was never going to work well for you. It's like the Cinderella story, you might say. So how does that? Now, Cinderella just happened. She found a shoe, or she found a fairy godmother that waved a wand and made it happen for her. But for the rest of us, I don't think life works that way.
Well, we need to be if we are in that situation, we need to be first, either look for a coach or look for somebody who is going to be someone who sees the potential in you, maybe before you see it in yourself. And also, to really learning to be your own, your own best friend, your own, you fall in love with yourself first. And if you need help with that, reach out to somebody, because we're all here again, like I've said before, it's our birthright, and those who try to knock us down, it's about that. That's their karma. It's how we, if we don't take that in, that's our karma, right?
A thought just came to mind that you triggered. Actually, every time I hear you, a thought's trigger come to mind. So it's not like a new happenstance. There's a thing called leveling. I was watching TV once, and there's a doctor of psychology on the screen, and he made a comment about leveling in terms of interaction. I never heard that phrase before. And what it comes down to, and actually we'll talk about this maybe next time around, but the key of it is when somebody's talking bad about you, what you're not, it's not about you, the victim, quote, it's about the person who's talking. They've got their own issues of problems and they're trying to burden you with it so they feel better about themselves. So when you talk about reaching out in awareness, I think that to me could be a first step. That if somebody's verbally blasting you all the time, the issue may not be you, likely not you, might be that person making their own point to confine you, to keep you. Is that
Yes.
something?
Yes, absolutely. People want to keep you small, or if because it makes them nervous, just to see you, or jealous, or all the other things. So it's projection. They're projecting that onto you. And so when you become aware of that, you get a little more neutral, and you get a little more, where you're like, it starts to, but you have to kind of stop and say, okay, this is not about me, and what it's their stuff.
So it kind of comes back to quote something you said earlier, is to recognize that stop being reactive and become proactive. And part of it is a self-awareness. You may not yet know where it goes, but understand that you have options not yet on the table for yourself. Is that kind of what you're saying as we close out?
Yes, and self-awareness is again, it's something that is not like a one-time thing. It's an over and over everyday practice of, like, becoming more conscious, because we have all those thoughts going on in that mind that continues to think. And so it's just in each moment trying to come back to that awareness.
Folks, it's getting harder and harder in staying in our 50-minute time zone. We're already a minute and a half over. Thank you very much. We do want to keep this an honest time factor. Anything you want to say, Lizzy, before we sign out?
Just, trust that the best is yet to come. Trust and reach out for help if you need it.
Sounds good. And even if you don't need it, reach out for help anyway.
Yes, we're in this together. No one's here